Okay, so I'm back, everyone. Back at home, as you can see. And I wanted to talk a little bit about um, the bottom surgery. I'm 2 weeks out from the surgery. I got home very late last night. Um, had to get up early today to do a bunch of stuff and whatnot. So yeah. So one of the things that I didn't know until the last second was that I had to go off of estradiol, estrogen, and I had to go on estrogen patches, which I don't know if they're as effective as the sublingual um, administering of the little tablets, um, but it's something you have to do, when you're in the run up to the surgery, through the recovery from the surgery, and like a week after the surgery. Um, but yeah, so okay, I kind of told you about the setup a little bit. Um, how I basically, the surgical site was cocooned in this big pad. It was literally a pad, and it was taped to me, and the tape was so it adhesed. Is that the right word? Well, there was so much adhesive in the tape that when they took it off my skin, it actually caused damage. Um, Unfortunately, but and there were these tubes coming out, and the tubes were running to a couple of. They looked kind of like bladders, and kind of shaped like like little grenades. And what those would do is they would you'd uncork it kind of. It had a little thing sticking out, and you'd open the thing, then you'd squeeze it, then you'd close the little cork, and very technical terms here. But you'd close that, and the reason you crush it, is to kind of get all the air out of it. So when you close the thing, it creates a vacuum, and what that does is it draws out the blood from the surgical site. There wasn't a lot of blood. I mean, like right after the surgery, it was, um, there was a bit in there, not a lot again, but there was some in there, and then like a couple days after the surgery, there was like hardly any. Um, but obviously, it's important that they put those things in there. Well, but you have to. Those were taped to my body too, and you had to empty them periodically, and you had to try to strip the drains, which is you pinch the hose and you pull it to try and um, prevent clotting in there, clotting of the blood. And you have to be okay with blood. You have to be okay with looking at scars, dealing with potentially open wounds, that kind of thing. Um, Thankfully, at this point, I'm happy to report that I do not have any open wounds, but you will, um, because of what I'm about to explain. Okay, so, and then there's a catheter. I talked about that. That was really uncomfortable, um, because it was every time I would move, it would move up against all of the soft stuff. I'm trying to be as, I don't want to gross anybody out, but I want to, be honest about it. That was very uncomfortable. And so when I went to after the first week, um, went back to the doctor's office, and right there in the office, they just kind of took the pad off of me, and then the hoses, right, the hoses that would collect the blood, well, they were inserted through me, so there were holes in me, and the hoses were put down into the surgical area. Well, and this is how fun it is to transition in this way. Um, this is not the first time I've had tubes sticking out of me. I had that in my orchiectomy, which I got just last year. I had tubes sticking out of, down there, and they were open to the inside of my body, and I was just like, really? This is how we're going to do this? Um, I tell you, it's almost like, indignity after indignity after indignity through this whole thing. But, so anyway, the tubes. Well, when they removed the tubes, they literally just pulled them out of my flesh. Yeah, just pulled them out, and they took some gauze and some surgical tape, and they put it over the open wounds, which had, were tunneled down through my flesh, and they just kind of scabbed over. Um, Unfortunately, they said, oh, just put a Band-Aid over it. Well, I didn't have Band-Aids, because nobody told me I had to buy Band-Aids. Because, I mean, none of this stuff was explained to me to begin with. And I'm like, what the fuck? You know? But anyway, I put um, the gauze on there, and that actually kind of made it worse in a way. Insofar as when I take the gauze off, it would open up the scab because the wounds were so big, it took them so long to scab over. It would remove the scab when I removed the gauze, so I was like, okay, learning curve, just don't put any more gauze on there, and I had pads and stuff to kind of, soak up any blood there, and yeah, so there were open holes there, open wounds, and yeah, and you shower, you gotta keep clean. They let you shower after a week. From someone who loves showering, it sucks to have to not be able to do it for a week. And it was the same thing with my orchiectomy. So there was that, and then there was the surgical site itself, which has sutures in it and stuff, and yeah, it's not fun, you know. But you know, when you're going into it, you think this is probably the most sensitive area of my body. With the exception of the pulp inside my teeth, I would think that this is like the most sensitive area. And you think it's going to be so painful and it's going to be awful. It actually wasn't that bad. I mean, like yesterday, I felt good. I was walking around and doing stuff. The thing is, most of that area of your body is numb. You can't feel anything. Um, so they tell you to use like a frozen peas. You wrap them in a towel, and then you use that as a means of helping with the swelling. And but you can't keep it on there for too long. You have to really pay attention to how long you have it on there because it's completely numb. You can't feel it. You can't feel the cold. So it's kind of a blessing and a curse, as there's a lot of stuff that you don't feel that you. I mean, we feel pain for a reason. It's to let us know that there's something wrong. um, so, but yeah, I mean, having the tubes taken out, having the catheter taken out, having the catheter in and having to live with it for a week, these were all painful things. But on the scale, 1 to 10, it was not what I thought it was going to be. And of course, they give you lots of, they give you some antibiotics, and they give you lots of pain meds, ibuprofen, acetaminophen, all kinds of stuff to get you through it. They give you, I got oxycodone, which honestly I didn't have to use for the first week. I thought the first week is going to be hell, but it wasn't. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And, yeah, so. So here's hoping that I heal up and everything. Now, mine is a 2-stage surgery, and it was like pulling teeth to get my brother to go down there with me. That's how I finally was able to get down there was my brother agreed to be my caretaker for a week. Well, my landlord slash um, roommate, he's in the past year he's suffered kidney failure, and he has to go to dialysis 3 times a week, and he could barely work and all this stuff. Well, when we were away in Spokane, his health took a turn for the worse. So now my brother's like, well, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be able to go with you next time for the next surgery. And I'm like, so I get halfway there. There's literally no one else. Here's the thing about being trans. When you come out, especially for those of us who are, middle-aged or older, when you come out and you transition, you lose everyone. I did, at least. And it's very common for trans people to lose their entire families. Their entire family just stops. Their family is so toxic that they just can't be around them, or their family disowns them, and you lose friends, and you lose your support system. And so here you have this doctor who works with trans people, seemingly almost exclusively, and he's requiring them to do the one thing that they can't possibly do, which is to get support. It's like your own doctor is sticking the knife in and twisting it as many times as possible. You're like, oh well, you lost your support system. Well, fuck you. If you want to get the surgery, you have to manifest a support system. The only reason I was able to get this fucking surgery in the first place is because my brother agreed to go with me, and my nephew agreed to stay here for a week with my ailing landlord slash roommate. Well, it's pretty pointless if I can't get the fucking second surgery. I'm stuck in this fucking limbo where I'm not complete again. And it's like, whoa, what a shitty thing to do, to require something and then not provide it. But that's what healthcare does at this point. They required me to buy all of this stuff for my pre-op and post-op care. They didn't prescribe it, because if they'd prescribed it, my insurance company would have paid for it. Required me to do it. It was like $50 or $60 worth of stuff that I had to buy. And it's like, Jesus Christ, this, it's like they try to come up with ever more uh, uh, harmful ways to try and fuck you. It's like, well, fucking you with a knife didn't kill you. Now I'm gonna fuck you with a chainsaw. It's like, why are you doing this to me? You need the fucking surgery. It's like, just fucking, will you just fucking do it? Quit requiring shit. If you're gonna require a caregiver to be with me for a week, then get my fucking insurance company to provide one. My fucking insurance company paid for my fucking flight out there, my fucking lodging for 2 weeks in an actually nice hotel. Not 5 fucking star, but I mean, it was nice. Paid for my trips back and forth to my doctor's office, and paid for my flight back for me and my brother. And it's like, if they'll pay for all that, they'll pay for a fucking caregiver for a week. You know? I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense at all, because they train people specifically to be caregivers. You know? That whole thing just pisses me off, and the possibility that I won't be able to get this second surgery pisses me off even more. And I'm the kind of person, I already got a fucking lawyer once to deal with this doctor's office because they were fucking me and fucking me over. Through incompetence and I suspect through intent for whatever reason. Um, so it's like, I'll get another fucking lawyer, one who will say, well, she can't provide this for herself, and denying her the surgery on the grounds that she can't provide her own caregiver for 7 fucking days is cruel. I mean, it's an act of cruelty to deny someone a surgery that they need on the grounds that they can't provide their own caregiver. You know, it's like, well, if you deny people care based upon how little money they have or how little access they have, then guess what? Only the rich are going to grow old. You know, and that's pretty much the system we have. But yeah, oh fuck, I'm so fucking sick of this shit. One fucking hoop after another. You know. Anyway, rant over. So let's talk about post-transition bottom surgery depression. For some trans people, as I mentioned earlier, it's very much a shock for them. You know, waking up with a completely different set of plumbing. And it's not a bad thing. You know, if that happens to someone, if they feel that way, you know, that's no reason to beat them up. They're not lesser because of that. You know, it's just something that happens. And there's nothing wrong with it. You know, I feel nothing but absolute sympathy and empathy for them feeling that way. You know, and no one should look down upon them for feeling that way. And there's nothing wrong with it, and it's completely normal. In my case, it wasn't that dramatic. I thought there was a possibility that I might feel like, oh God, you know, what have I done? And that's one of the things that scared me the most, you know, was the potential for regret. That didn't happen. And I was shocked. You know, I felt it and I was like, oh, that's what it was supposed to be like. You know, it was supposed to be that way the whole time. Now, admittedly, what I have now is more maintenance intensive, but I knew that going in. It was one of the many things that I considered, and yeah, so yeah, I mean, for me, it was like, oh, okay, yeah, that works, that makes sense, you know. So yeah, I think maybe I lucked out in that way, you know. Um, and people are constructed differently, you know, and that difference is not doesn't make them lesser, you know. So whereas I go through it and I'm instantly satisfied and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's what I wanted, that's what should be. Other people would feel regret, you know, and oh God, I really feel for people that go through that, you know, because once done, it cannot be undone, you know. And so it's something you really have to consider. Not trying to dissuade anyone. I'm just being honest, you know, that it's something that you have to think about and consider, and you can't just rush into it. So, to wrap up, am I happy? Yeah, yeah. Um, I'm also scared. I'm afraid that I'm not going to be able to get the second surgery. That scares the hell out of me because I need that too. I mean, the surgery is meant to be in 2 parts, I don't get the second part, you know? So, yeah. I just hope we can make this happen. I hope that I can make it happen. I could tell you about all the crap that my brother and I went through on the trip, how nothing was planned out, how half of my appointments weren't set up, you know, how it was just one fucking thing after another. And it was almost like, we're going to throw everything at you to try to prevent you from getting this surgery. We're going to throw everything at you to try to, you know, to try to stop you and all this stuff, and I'm not talking about we as in a conscious effort by, a human or a group of humans, just circumstance, the universe, whatever you want to call it, you know. But I through all that, I made it happen, and as with so many trans people, I have my moments of, you know what, just fucking boom, um, and it's hard for me sometimes. There's a lot of shit that you guys don't see, that I don't show you, because I don't want to give anyone any ammo. And perhaps that's a failing in myself. I don't know. Um, but, yeah. It's hard, when you pretend to be a thing for the majority of your life, it's hard to instantly take down all of those walls. This was something that I felt ashamed of and that I hid for a long time, for most of my life. And I built up walls around the real human being. And, that's just, it's a part of the era into which I was born, So that's kind of why. But the real human being within me is not some hard ass, I'm going to kill you if you look at me wrong kind of, you know, facsimile that I was artificially generating just to get by in this society. The real person was and is vulnerable. And it's been hard for me to allow myself to show that. And perhaps that's why I don't, why I edit out all the pain that I go through. So, yeah. But I'm working on it. I'm sure there's going to be some asshole out there who's like, well, did you just get this surgery so you could have sex with men? No. No. I think as I've experienced, short hair like this only appeals to about, what, maybe 10% of the male population. Most guys think, well, your hair has to be down to here, or down to your ass, or down to the, it has to be dragging behind you, 10 feet behind you, to be attractive. And so if my goal was simply to have sex with men, one, I could do it quite easily because I've been propositioned a number of times, and two, I would model myself after what men seem to be attracted to. But I don't do that. I keep my hair short because I like it that way. if there's a guy out there who's into me, then he'll be into me, even if he likes how short my hair is or doesn't. You know? And it's the same thing with every part of me, including that part of me. You know? There's nothing that I do or have done that is to attract a mate. I mean, look at all the choices I make. Look at the kind of clothes I wear. Nobody's dressed like me. Nobody has this haircut. You know, not with the back all short and everything else. I mean, I keep it really short in the back. If you want to see more of it, you can support me on Patreon. But, you know, I have this very dramatic makeup. You know, I'm not doing it to attract men or women or anybody else. I'm doing it because I like it. Anyway, yeah, so that was the part one. This is part one of my bottom surgery. So, yeah, let's just hope that there's going to be a part two. Anyway, thanks for watching, everyone.